Established in 1897, the Godrej Group is a family-controlled conglomerate with wide-ranging business interests from consumer goods to real estate and security, based in Mumbai. In the last 5 years, Godrej Consumer Products, the group's largest division, has made about 10 international acquisitions and intends to do more. Joining us today on INSEAD Knowledge is Adi Godrej, the chairman of the Godrej Group, to tell us more. Welcome to INSEAD Knowledge.
Good to talk to you.
Successful Indian firms are expanding abroad. About a third of your consumer goods sales are happening outside India. Why such a focus on international markets when you already have a growing middle class within India?
In the fast-moving consumer goods sector, where Godrej Consumer Products plays, we work on negative working capital in India. And almost all our fixed capital requirement comes from our increasing negative working capital as we grow. So we really don't need any capital investment within India for our growth. We're growing very rapidly in India. Our growth this year has been running at about 23-24% in India. So all the additional capital we generate, we of course give reasonable dividends, but we thought we'd invest that in expansion in the developing world, because the other countries in the developing world have similar economies to India, similar consumer attitudes. The bottom of the pyramid products that we particularly specialize in India have a great demand potential in these countries. And this has paid us very good dividends over the last 6 or 7 years in terms of our expansion.
You've made 3 acquisitions in Latin America, another acquisition in Africa last year. How do you decide what to acquire?
The investment bankers all over the world, including some local investment bankers, approach us. They know our appetite. We have a very clear strategy. We call it 3 by 3. We want to grow on 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and South America, in 3 categories. One is hair care, especially hair color, where we are leaders in India and in many other countries. In household products, especially household insecticides, we have a very strong leadership position in India, and in personal care. So mainly soaps. So these are very clear areas. So the investment bankers across the world know what we are interested in. Whenever there are opportunities, they bring them to us, and then we evaluate them.
You began as a lock maker and vastly expanded your business since. What is your biggest growth constraint today?
Locks was our first product. Soon after that, we went into soaps, and then we have organically expanded quite considerably. Most of our growth has come organically, although now our inorganic growth is also quite considerable. Our major constraint, I would say, is we are mainly a private group. We have only 4 companies in our group which are listed. And even in most of the listed companies, we have a very high percentage of the shareholding. I would say our biggest constraint would be financial constraint. We don't want to dilute our shareholding very much. And the second constraint, I would say, is we have very good strategy. We have very good people who implement our strategy, but I would be a little careful on the execution front. We must pay a lot of attention to ensuring that we execute our strategy well.
How do you maintain the brand of an old company like Godrej in the midst of new and social media?
Yes, our brand is 115 years old. About 5 years ago, we realized that we needed to revamp our brand. We needed to make sure that it was relevant to the new consumers. So we appointed a British company called Interbrand, which is one of the world's biggest brand advisors. They do work for companies like Samsung, BMW. So they continue to do some work for us, but they did a major study. And then we evolved a new platform for the brand. So although the logo is exactly the same, we changed the color of the logo. Earlier, the same logo was used in different colors. There was no standardization, etc. So it's very standardized now. Then the projection of the business has been made more modern. Earlier, we used to get feedback that the brand is relevant to my parents, sometimes even to my grandparents, but not to me. Now the feedback we get is very, very good. It's considered a brand now that is very relevant to the young consumers, and as you know, the demography of India is very, very young. We are also emphasizing our technological capabilities, because a lot of people thought we are only in businesses which are in low technology areas. You mentioned locks or soaps or whatever. But we also supply to the Indian space program. We supply to the Indian nuclear program. We have very strong chemical machinery building capability. So we emphasized our technological capabilities. We emphasized our technological capabilities even in businesses that don't sound being based on technology. We do a lot of R&D, etc. We communicated a lot with our employees. And I think that has changed the brand image very considerably. We get a lot of feedback on that. We measure our brand. Recently, we had our brand valued, and the valuation of the Godrej brand came to slightly less than $3 billion.
Growth forecasts for India have dimmed. What's your take?
Oh, long-term forecast, I'm extremely optimistic. I expect India will continue to grow very well. I think the GDP growth rate in India will average between 9 and 10% over the next 2 decades. The Indian demography is a great positive for India, especially when you compare India with other large economies of the world, and especially China. China's demography will start telling on China's growth in about 5 to 7 years' time. And India's demography will keep improving for the next 2 decades, in the sense that the number of Indians in the working age group relative to the number of Indians in the non-working age group, that means the elder and the children, will keep improving. So this is a rare phenomenon in the world today. Today the ratio is deteriorating in most countries. In some countries the overall population itself is diminishing. Now what we need to do to ensure the demographic dividends is to ensure that we pay a lot of attention to education, but even more importantly to training and skill development. That's a very important. Already the government and the private sector is doing a lot in this direction. We expect more will come about, and the combination of training, skilling, education and the demographic dividend could be very telling on very strong growth. So I'm very, very bullish on India's growth prospects.
Mr. Godrej, thank you for joining us today on INSEAD Knowledge.
Good talking to you.